Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Talking Heads. You join us here at the Bike Social Studio, and this, as you probably gathered by the headline, is the Suzuki episode. So available as a podcast, as well as a visual version of a podcast. It's a video. And joining me on the sofa today, we've got, a new co-host. We've got Mr. Simon Hargreaves.
Welcome.
Hello, Simon Hargreaves.
Pleasure and a privilege to be here.
Very familiar with podcasts, aren't you, sir?
I've done a few.
Front End Chatter, wink, wink. And because it's a Suzuki episode, we have the director of Suzuki GB, Paul de Lusignan. Paul.
Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. So I had it on my notes, Suzuki Motorcycles GB, but that's not accurate, is it?
Well, it's close enough, but I look after what we call the bikes, boats and quads division at Suzuki. So all the motorcycles, our ATVs, and also our outboard engines.
That's
so quite a wide range of toys. So great fun.
It really is the dream.
It is great fun.
And you've been there 19 years.
Yeah,
right?
19 years. Yeah. Yeah. So started there in the marketing team 19 years ago.
Well, what we're going to do then is we'll have a little chat about you and your role and what you do and how you do it and why you do it, and then perhaps we'll get into the nitty gritty of a bit more. Look, we've got the GSX-8 right here, right now. Not many of these in the country, are there, right now?
None. That's the bike. If you've watched the videos and things from the launches around the world, this is the bike.
No way.
So it's a rare beast right now.
When are they in dealership?
September time.
Okay, so
it's quite soon.
Not too far away.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're recording this at the beginning of August.
Yeah.
Fab.
Yeah.
19 years, man and boy. Why did it all begin?
Well, I've always worked sort of in the automotive industry one way or the other. Trained to be an engineer straight from school. So that was my starting point. And then found that I liked PR, marketing, sales, and kind of gradually moved in that direction. But always been a motorcyclist. And so when there became an opportunity to join Suzuki sort of 19 years ago, I absolutely jumped at the chance.
Yeah.
And just absolutely loved it ever since. So yeah, been fantastic.
How did you get started on bikes though? Where did that begin?
Probably when I was about 14 or 15, I suppose. And it's kind of, riding other guys' bikes in the field behind the school or, around the garage block or something off the road, or a little scooter in a field, that kind of thing that was quite common back in the day. And then took my bike test when I was 17 and kind of rode a bike. Didn't even have a car license for a couple of years after that. So I was sort of motorcyclist first and foremost and sort of started from there, really. And I think as you guys know, it's a love. It kind of gets in your blood, doesn't it?
What was your first bike?
Probably the first bike I bought was a KE100 Kawasaki, sort of as a field bike.
Yeah.
That didn't really work very well. The first sort of proper bike I had on the road was the Yamaha RD125LC, which I enjoyed. It's great, good bike. So kind of a selection from there, and then went on to Honda CB550 for a while, Kawasaki GPZ600R, ZX-R 750, then a GSX-R 750.
All
bikes.
What was your first Suzuki?
The first proper Suzuki was that GSX-R 750,
right,
which is what I always lusted after.
Yeah.
And so it was a 92 WN, I think was the model.
Ah, yeah, I remember that.
In the kind of the tracksuit sort of colour, fluoro colours of the day.
Yeah, easy. That's a good colour scheme.
Yeah. But it was very much definitive of its age, wasn't it, of that time. And what was really useful for me is that when I sort of had an opportunity to come into the motorcycle industry, and I was at Suzuki, kind of going through the interview process, quite a daunting process. We had the Japanese managing director of the company, another Japanese managing director of the motorcycle division, the sales and marketing director of the time, and the sales director of the time. That was the interview panel. And, that was 19 years ago, so a relatively young man. So it was pretty daunting. And one of the questions they said to me is, so what motorcycle have you got in your garage right now? And I was able to say, well, I've got a GSX-R 750. Yes. And so it was kind of, it was fortuitous, but it really helped. And so there's always kind of been that kind of lust. But some of the other stuff around, even when I was riding 125s, some of my friends had the kind of like the 250 Gammas and stuff like that. So there was always a lot of the Suzuki stuff around, of course, because it was massive and everybody lusted after a GSX-R.
Even if it wasn't in your garage at the time, you could have got away with it.
Yeah, it would have been nice. So I've had a selection. So as most motorcyclists have. I think that's one of the really nice things about biking.
And when did you become a director? And at what why did you become a director? Was that your choice, or were you sort of promoted into that role? And you
a bit of both. I mean, obviously, you have kind of career ambitions for things you'd like to do, and as you grow up through different roles, you find a different way. As I said, I started in pure engineering. And then, when I was young, that kind of changed into, actually, I really enjoyed PR, that's good. And then that changed into marketing, and then that changed into sales. And I suppose as you learn new skills, you learn the things that you enjoy, and that hopefully you can kind of deliver some value for the company as you kind of do that. And I suppose, so it's a combination really of opportunity, a job becomes available when you've got the kind of skills that you think you can bring to it. So you put yourself forward and hopefully kind of goes from there.
You're based in Milton Keynes, aren't
Yeah,
you?
based in Milton Keynes, yeah.
And do you report directly into Japan, or is there?
Oh no, we have a sort of a reporting structure in Milton Keynes. So we've got a managing director and a deputy managing director, and the team's reporting to them. Yeah. But then we do have a very direct link with Japan as well. So I have a Japanese colleague sort of sitting alongside me who's doing the daily liaison back with Japan. But we talk to Japan a lot as well. So we're in, I would say, every single day there's email conversations going backwards and forwards, regular meetings, that kind of thing. So it's very involved from that point of view.
So what's your working day then as boss of Suzuki? So when you get up in the morning, how does it start, and what do you do? What do you actually do?
Do you have a Suzuki mug?
It's a good,
It's like your Suzuki slippers.
Well, it can be really varied because there's a reasonable amount of travel, but it tends to come towards the end of the year, so it tends to be quite compressed. So obviously show season, things like going to the EICMA show in Milan would be an obvious one, but we will usually hold some meetings in Milan with the other European countries in Japan while we're there. We will go to Japan once or twice a year for sort of some set piece meetings, got big meetings and then much smaller meetings. The Japanese guys will come to visit us. So there's that kind of stuff that's kind of happening. We might be doing financial forecasts. We might be doing sales forecasts. What accessories do we need? What colour bikes do we want in the future? What features do we need? So it can be, as dull as spreadsheet work.
Yeah.
It's literally crunching numbers, and the numbers could represent anything. And it can be as exciting as, let's talk to the engineers and designers about a new bike that's coming 5 years from now.
I was going to say, do you have much input into the sort of the product planning side of things?
Yeah, the guys in Japan involve us a lot. So they'll kind of be thinking about what they think should come in the plan, but they're also asking us what we think should come in the plan. And then you can imagine that plan gets more and more refined the nearer the bikes get. So initially, it might just start with, we think there should be a bike like this, and it might just be a name, really. And then it'll be a bit more, well, what specification should that bike be? Who is the customer that we're looking to aim that bike at?
Yeah.
What's the basis of that bike? And then it kind of gets more and more refined each time.
So you're bringing quite a lot of kind of like specific UK market knowledge into
sure. Yeah, and that's really the thing. The guys in Japan really like that. They really want to hear from the markets. And the engineers and designers will come to the markets from time to time, so they'll come and talk to customers and dealers. But they also rely on us to do that a lot. So they'll send us stuff, quite regularly. We'll get images, specification sheets about stuff that's coming in the future, and we'll give our feedback about that. And then when we're in Japan or at other meetings, sometimes we'll see actual bikes. We'll see clay models, which will typically a full-size clay model, looks like a finished motorcycle, but some of it is clay, some of it is wood, but it will quite often be painted to look like this. Sometimes at an earlier stage, it might just be grey and you can see the clay, but you're just looking at the shape and the style. So you do get really quite involved in some of those decisions, and so you can really have an influence over that. And ultimately the factory will decide, because they're having to balance up all the different markets, and what we say and what the US say or what another country in Europe say might not be quite the same. So the factory's got a difficult job there sometimes to balance.
God, that must never get dull. I mean, your job is, that sounds ace, because that's like...
That doesn't ever get dull.
Yeah.
No, I really, really like that part of it. And I think one of the really nice things is, having been at Suzuki for quite a long time, is you see those things come into fruition. So you kind of see those things in the early stages and you have some influence on them, and then they kind of get developed and then they get delivered into the market, and then you're selling them and then you see them out on the road.
I remember that from
a bike that I remember, if you remember the original GSX-R 1000 Phantom edition, which was kind of like a black and grey with some graphics and things. And I was working in the marketing department at the time that we kind of came up with that idea. It's a UK special edition. And I just remember how well received it was and how great it looked in the photography. And then years later, you kind of pull up at an event and there is one.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, and that...
There's a bit in it.
Yeah, there is. There's a bit of excitement about that. And I think that's really nice. And I hope all of my team in different ways get involved in those conversations. And I think that's a really nice thing, because one of the great things about being in motorcycles, and I know this about Suzuki, I don't know about other brands, but I certainly know for Suzuki, is that it's a great big global brand, but we're a very small team. So as a result of that being a very small team, you get to be heavily involved in a lot of stuff that means you're like, we're doing global stuff here. And a really good recent example, talk about the 8TT, is that this bike and the GSX-R 1000, the marketing team in the UK created all the video and photography assets for the global launch of those bikes.
Yeah.
Now that's quite a thing, isn't it? We've got a very small marketing team, but we're doing the global stuff. And who'd have thought that? And I always say to the guys that, these are career-defining moments, things that you'll always remember, and things that kind of come as your experience later. And I've had the benefit of having plenty of those along the way, and it's nice that they get that benefit as well. So I think you can get some really exciting stuff. So that's the really exciting stuff.
Yeah.
There's loads of the normal
Spreadsheets, not so much.
Spreadsheets that kind of, managing all the processes and systems and all the stuff you have to compliance and all the things you have to do as a big business. That's an important part of the job. But ultimately, looking after your people, having some fun around the products is important. And that fun bit is really important to us.
That's a big Japanese company. I know you just said that you're sort of a small company. We were referring to the UK operation as a small company.
I was really, but yes. Yeah.
It's kind of sort of more family oriented. That's part of the culture though, right?
Yeah, I think so. And Simon, you've been, and people are friendly, and lots of people at Suzuki, both in the UK and in Japan, have been there a long time. So you really get to know them. And certainly, when you're in Japan, there's a big social element about that. Is going out and actually, having a few drinks, getting to know people, relaxing. It's a part of how they like to do business, and that makes it really enjoyable.
I have to say it's funny if that's still the case. When we both went to Hamamatsu, spent some time there in 2007, I was
about 2007, I think.
Yeah, it's quite a long time ago.
Yeah,
but I still remember vividly coming away with the impression that it was almost like a family affair. It wasn't a huge number of people, but it was a relatively small number of very dedicated people who actually make these things that we ride.
Yeah.
You kind of assume that they're made by computers or something. But
yes.
No, they've got personalities. They've got people that actually make these things. And the Suzuki feeling was that it was very much a kind of a very small family of very enthusiastic people who made these things. I remember coming away from the factory going, can I have a job there? Because I really want to be part of that. It was such a wonderful feeling.
And what was really nice for me is that that trip was more or less at the beginning of my career at Suzuki. I probably was with Suzuki 6 or 9 months at the point that you and I went to Japan.
Is that why we spent so much money on the expenses?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, good. I thought it was.
And I hadn't been to Japan the first time either.
Oh, okay.
So I'm acting as your tour guide there, and I've never been. So it was our first experience doing that, and and it was really great fun. It was really good.
But it was an eye opener as well, just how these bikes are produced. I mean, it was top to bottom.
Yeah.
And like I say, the process of making a motorbike to see it like that was quite something. So I can kind of, when you're talking about how that feels, I can feel that, I empathise with that. I can really understand.
Yeah, I think that's something that we have both in the UK and in Japan, and I think we also kind of have it with our dealer network. And I think that kind of relationship with the dealers is really important. It's absolutely critical to a manufacturer to have a good relationship with your dealers. They are our lifeblood. And, that's an important part of the business, that those two things kind of work hand in glove. And having that relationship is really important. And even, knowing when things are tough, or when things aren't going as planned, or when something's not what you expected, that the tough conversations can happen both ways. And sometimes the dealers will be tough on us and say, guys, we don't think this is right. Or sometimes we might be saying to the dealers, actually, we'd like to challenge you to do a bit better at this. You want to be able to have those conversations and still be business friends and kind of keep that going. And I think we do have that, which is really nice.
They're the face of the company, aren't they? Because for the customer to come into a Suzuki dealership. How many dealers do you have in the UK, by the way?
It's around about 60. So it's that kind of number spread across the UK, and a mix of dealers that just look after Suzuki and some that look after Suzuki and other brands as well.
I think that almost plays into a little bit into sort of, there is a feeling, I think, amongst sort of the general population of motorcyclists that everybody, even if you ride another brand, wants Suzuki to do well, in a way that sometimes you can imagine there are some people who ride other brands who will look at another brand and say, well, I'm not into that. I don't like them. I don't like that brand. I don't like that brand. I'm not one of those.
Yeah.
Nobody says that about Suzuki. Nobody's not a Suzuki rider. You know, there's that option is always there. I don't know, which seems to me like it's kind of a brand strength.
Yeah, and I think I suppose how that makes me think is that there's an element that most motorcyclists have been a Suzuki rider,
Yeah.
are a Suzuki rider, or will be a Suzuki rider.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, we're part of the market, a big part of the market. And as you say, a big brand name. And we've got quite a wide range of bikes. Obviously, that range changes over time. But usually we've got something for everybody.
But that's also a downside in a sense, because I remember one of the conversations I had while I was at Hamamatsu was what does Suzuki actually mean to a UK rider, one of us, you know?
Yes.
And in some ways, as I think you've alluded to, Michael, it's quite easy to sort of like put something on the other brands, like we're saying Honda are engineers, Yamaha are Mavericks, BMW do Maverick stuff as well, Kawasaki do fast bikes. Suzuki do really good bikes, but what's the thing? What is the thing, do you think?
I think that's really interesting. And actually, it's a challenge that we had in our team recently. We were saying, well, how do we encapsulate what the DNA of Suzuki is? So we can sort of explain that to our dealers and our customers and ourselves when we think about everything we do. And we actually did quite a lot of work around it, you know, talking to dealers, talking to customers, talking to the engineers, thinking about our own experiences. And the phrase we came up with is it's serious fun. And we kind of think that really encapsulates Suzuki. And there's deliberately two kind of opposing words there, really. They work well together. That's serious fun. If you think about the fun bit, you know, one of the reasons why I've worked at Suzuki for so long is because it is fun. Because I enjoy getting up in the morning. I enjoy the people I work with. I enjoy the products. I enjoy the industry. Why wouldn't you want to come and do it? And, you know, like you said, when you talk about some of the experiences, it's like a dream. It's like a dream job from those points of view. Lots of people would love to have that job, but it's fun. The other point is for our customers, why do you buy a motorcycle? Most customers are buying a motorcycle because they want to have fun. That's the point. And even if that motorcycle is actually, well, it's a scooter, which I'm going to commute to work on, within that realm, it should still be fun. It should still be an enjoyable experience that you should kind of do that. So that word's been really important to us for quite some time. It's nice to encapsulate it there. If you think about the serious part of that, I think you can use that in several ways. Well, you can use it to amplify the fun bit. It's serious fun. But you can also think about the work that goes on in the engineering, the testing, the development, the quality, the reliability. You know, if you ask anybody about Suzuki, they will say they're reliable, they don't break down, bomb-proof. These are the kind of words people use about Suzuki. That takes serious engineering. That's not messing around. That is, we're properly looking after you. And then we've got our dealer network. You know, we've got a great dealer network who will look after you as a customer. And so that's why we kind of come up with that phrase, basically. It's serious fun.
It's better than ride the winds of change, to be fair. That sort of fits. And also, it is interesting you were talking about the perception of Suzuki as being bomb-proof.
Yeah.
That's always the word that's been used to describe Suzuki. That would be the thing that I would say. If someone said, what does Suzuki mean to you? It's bulletproof.
Yeah.
They don't go wrong.
Yeah. I'm happy to have that. That's a great moniker to have alongside our brand. I think it's true.
But we have to address this. There was a perception. Suzuki in the late sort of 1990s went through a crazy period when you were throwing TL1000Ss, TL1000Rs, Bandits, Bandit 1200, Bandit 600, SD 650. You know, it goes on and on and on. And that sort of rolled into the 2000s with the GSX-R range. It all kind of went a bit quiet. And about 5 or 6 years ago, about the same time Suzuki pulled out a MotoGP, the product lineup was looking pretty sparse. The Hayabusa had gone, GSX-R, all the sports bikes were on the way out. What was coming up behind? And there was a flavour, tell me if I'm wrong, but there was a perception that Suzuki were kind of taking their foot off the gas, eye off the ball. There was even a question about, are they actually going to be in motorcycling for much longer?
Yeah, and I think, I got asked that question.
Yeah.
I've been interviewed a number of times. People have said those kind of things. You pulled out a MotoGP. Does that mean you're pulling out motorcycling?
Yeah.
And I suppose let's say the good thing for me is, because I'm seeing behind the scenes, I could say with confidence, absolutely not. That's absolutely not what's happening. But what was really happening was, one of the things is when you have a very, very wide product range, as we did at the time, and then you're faced with lots more compliance and legislation stuff, Euro 3, Euro 4, Euro 5, imagine the engineering resource to put every single one of those bikes and engines through all of those tests and then make them work to the new compliance things. And actually the range was just so broad that you couldn't really manage it. And so your engineering resources all take up doing that instead of actually developing new products and bikes. And so there was a kind of a strategic shift from us at that point. So actually, we need to kind of think more carefully about strategically what engine platforms we have so that we can develop new bikes in the future. But then when we come across the next lot of legislation, it's a bit easier for us to kind of have the engineering resource to do it. So it's a sort of a rebalancing, really. And that was, let's say, a transition phase of that stage. So that was quite difficult at that time. We didn't have as many products in the range as we would have liked to have had. But, I suppose because I was able to see a long-term view,
you knew what was coming.
I'm like, this is, right now this is a bit of a lean period. But most manufacturers in the industry, it's cyclical. The industry's cyclical. Our time will come.
That's when you're sitting there telling everybody, don't worry, there's going to be some good stuff, but can't talk to you about it yet because of course you can go through that cycle. Cycle.
Yeah.
Now, 2025 has been, moving on to sort of present day, has been a lot busier time for you.
Yes.
The shift from out and out sports bikes to sport touring bikes has been, you've come with the GT and the GX recently. They've been very, very popular models. And now here we are with the 8T and the 8TT. And of course, only last week, we're all going, hang on a minute. We're prepping for this, going, now, Suzuki's GSX-R range, known for GSX-R sports bike. Well, it's just a 125 at the moment, isn't it? And then, pow, all of a sudden, GSX-R 1000R comes.
And I guess I knew that. Yes. So in some ways, I was like, if we could delay that by a week or so, then the guys might have some different questions for me. So that was a great opportunity.
So we are sitting here, 1 week, 6 days after launch.
Yes.
And it must have been a bit of a whirlwind for you. Have you the dealers said, yes, everyone's very, very interested.
Yeah.
It's still some, 9 months or so before it actually...
Yeah, it will be here in the spring.
Wheel.
So, we're still a little way from that happening. But that's kind of fairly normal timing-wise. Obviously, we've had a lot of new products this year. And to some extent, there's an element of spreading out the workload for us. Engineering workload, marketing workload, all of those things that you've got to do to kind of launch new bikes. But primarily around engineering. When things go into production, you can't put all of your new bikes into production in the same month. You've got to kind of spread that workload across the year. So that tends to dictate when bikes will be launched. How many of there are will have some impact. But yeah, it's been exciting to have all that stuff. Our team have been working extremely hard to kind of get ready. And it has been a whirlwind, because they have literally gone from announcing one bike, training for one bike, photography and video for one bike, then, there's another bike to announce, do that again, press launch. So it's been pretty busy, but exciting. That's a great busy to have, launching new bikes. You can't get any more exciting than that.
Yeah, that's very great. 8 o'clock on a Monday morning becomes a really, really good time to get to work.
Absolutely. You're like, he's going to be announced.
What's going on though? Because it's like there are sports bikes, as we know, there was a huge market in the 90s and 2000s, and then it fell off a cliff. And nobody bought sports bikes, and it all got a bit tricky. And Honda ditched the CBR 600, and other manufacturers, Yamaha ditched the R1. And you're kind of thinking, is that the end of the sports bike? And then the Suzuki GSX-R range effectively disappears from the big bike range. And you're sort of thinking, well, that's it for sports bikes. And so what's the motivation? Because the sales haven't suddenly picked up. So what's the motivation for bringing it back?
Well, I suppose there's a couple of things. Firstly, the bike never disappeared from Suzuki's range as a whole.
For sure. It still for sale in America.
It disappeared from Europe.
Yeah.
So the fact is Suzuki was still selling that bike, still racing that bike.
Yeah.
So it is kind of part of our brand DNA, GSX-R. It's important to us.
Yeah.
It's an important part of our brand image. But probably the most important thing is we've got a passion for it. And when you talk to the people that are kind of heading up Suzuki back in Japan, and you talk to the engineers, and you talk to the sales and marketing, all of them are like, we need to get that back. Right. So there's that kind of deep passion that kind of runs through their veins and our veins has meant it might have been difficult at certain points in time to do it, but we never gave up on the fact that we wanted that back in Europe.
Right. Okay.
And,
so it's important from a branding point of view.
It's important from a branding point of view, but I think it's important from a passion point of view.
Yeah.
It's, I talk about that fun thing.
Yeah.
Is we want to do stuff that we enjoy doing and our customers will enjoy doing. It's not just a business, is it, motorcycling?
Okay.
It's much more than that.
So it's almost like in terms of sales, it's almost like a kind of a halo thing. It's it
is.
I mean, obviously you want to sell them.
100%. We're in the sales business. Of course, we want to sell them. We need to sell them. We will sell them.
Yeah.
But yes, of course, it has a really great halo effect on the brand. It gives you great stories to talk about. It's a great experience. And for those customers who want to ride a sports bike, we're going to provide a great opportunity.
There's now a Suzuki sports bike that you would go out and ride.
Yeah.
This so happened, obviously it was deliberate. I say obviously, I assume it's obvious that it was deliberately launched at just prior to the Suzuki 8-hour race.
Yes. Yeah, and that's not a coincidence. Obviously, we've been really successful at that. We've had, I think, 15 world titles at that racing. The last few years, we've been first or second.
I've got it here.
Oh, brilliant.
So so you're reigning world champions. You got first, second, first.
So it's not bad, is it?
Not bad at all.
It's not bad, So the bike's racing now with the number one on it. We got third place. We were on the podium at Suzuki this weekend, just gone. We were racing our CN Challenge bike there at the same time, kind of testing out some of those kind of products. So, there's plenty of racing opportunity going on. And I mean, the really interesting thing on the CN Challenge bike is that the team racing that bike are basically people and engineers who work at Suzuki. And, their day job is the engineering of bikes. And then they're sort of at the weekend, they're taking the bikes, doing some racing. So some really quite interesting stuff that are going on there. So that kind of DNA about racing in the company and GSX-R specifically in the company is absolutely there, which is a really nice thing.
MotoGP in 2027 then, excellent.
Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Oh, hello. Bit of a scoop there for our podcast, I think.
Don't take it as a scoop.
But I like the fact that it's so carefully planned that you use the Suzuka event, obviously, which is an enormous event. It's so important to the Japanese, again, industry, culture, that side of the world. But then you launched the 8T and the TT, and then only moments later was the press launch. And then again, I think it's only a couple of months between press launch and in dealerships. There's a bit of a difference, isn't there? What I mean by that is, I think you alluded to it earlier on, particularly with EICMA and that sort of tradition of motorcycle brands launching bikes almost all at the same time.
Yes.
Just, several months before the next season then kicks off and everyone gets excited about it during the winter. I think with the this bike here and the GSX-R, you've at least managed some fantastic PR and marketing out of it by having almost a silo launch all of your own, as in a global announcement.
Yeah, I think you've seen that if you look at the industry. We've seen that across other manufacturers as well at different times. It's great to have that kind of show season. EICMA is a really important show for us. So it's definitely great to have that. If you think about the timing of bike launches, typically in Europe, if we're launching in November time, the bike's coming to market in the spring or summer the following year. That's a normal kind of timing. If we take our DRZs, for instance, there's a bigger gap between those things. But the reason for that bigger gap is that bike's going to the US market first. Right. So the initial production was for the US market because it's a big bike in their marketplace. So in fact, the gap between announcement and arrival in the market is about normal. It's just that it's not our market. In this occasion, it's the US market. But for many bikes we get, the bike often comes to the European market first, so we often don't feel that. So that's why it's a little bit the other way around there. And then, as you say, you've got to kind of spread your engineering resource around. And from a marketing point of view, it's great to have some stories to talk about new products. And, if you look around the buzz around the return of GSX-R 1000R, there's a buzz across all the media because there's a great story there to talk about. And we're not competing with other great stories. So it's a good opportunity.
And 40th anniversary, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So it's something to sort of remember and think about all those previous models.
Do you think it is about 9 months, isn't it? I think till we see it in dealerships approximately. But do you think that's too long? Do you think that the buzz would have died off a little bit, and the 2026 models from elsewhere will?
Everybody would love to have new bike announced and it's on sale next week kind of thing. In some respects, with the 8T and the TT, we're a bit like that. It's been announced and quite quickly it's in the market. But the reality is you can't always achieve that. But nonetheless, we've had we've had really strong interest so far. We've got plenty of pre-orders. I think our initial allocation of bikes is almost sold out already. Yeah. So there'll be people who will be happy to wait until then. It's a bike that people will pick up in the spring. They've got it for all next summer. I think that people will be looking forward to it arriving. And sometimes it's like booking a nice holiday, isn't it? The looking forward to it, anticipation is quite a nice part of it. Because you start to do a bit of research, you start doing some reading, you think about what riding kit you might want, you think about where you might ride. So I don't think it's fine. So I'm not worried about that at all. I think we've got plenty of time to kind of let people know. And there's, as we get more information about the bikes and stuff, obviously there's more news that we'll be able to release as those things get agreed. So
like the price.
The price. Absolutely.
Which is going to be critical.
Yeah.
Because to be fair, the bike, looking at the spec, the bike isn't massively evolved from its predecessor because, as you say, it's been on sale in the world, elsewhere in the world all the time. So there are developments, there are changes to the bike, which seem to me to be quite a lot about getting it through Euro 5+. I mean, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, don't you? Because we said it about the Hayabusa when that came back. The power in torque is lower than its predecessor.
Yeah, and frankly, if you just read the spec sheet and just read that, you might say, oh, that's lower, that's a backward step or whatever you might say. I just don't agree with that. I think, of course we've got to get it through the legislation. Without getting it through the legislation, we don't have a bike. So that's the first most important thing. But when you read what the engineers have done, think about it, all the things they've done are giving it that opportunity for more performance. So yes, if you're buying a bike for the road, that's what you're getting as a package. But if you're buying a bike that you might take on a track day, or you might race, or you might do some other performance mods on, there's plenty of opportunity there.
Yeah, you're talking about things like the thicker crank journals and stronger con rods,
different pistons, all these kind of
high
things.
Compression ratio.
All these things make a difference to the potential of the bike. And people who are kind of serious about their racing and track days will be able to take advantage of some of those things. So there's a massive change there. And actually, if you look at all the new components on the bike, actually it's big. And that's not a small feat of engineering. Yeah. And I think the necessity to do the compliance stuff has given the opportunity to do some performance stuff. And I think that's kind of really good from that point of view. I think the other point is, if you're, GSX-R 1000's always been known as a fantastic road bike. It's a sports bike that you can ride really nicely on the road.
Absolutely.
It's comfortable. It's got great low down torque. It's lovely to ride from that point of view. If you want a sports bike for the road, I would argue it's the best choice. I would challenge any road rider to tell the difference between 195 horsepower and 200 horsepower. You're just not going to be able to tell.
Of course not, no.
And so, and as you said, there was, people made a similar comment about Hayabusa. When you rode Hayabusa, the new one was faster than the old one, even though the spec sheet might have said something different.
Yeah.
And that, we tested it on a drag strip. Probably some of you guys tested it.
Yeah.
It's a fact. So don't be taken in by the spec as the numbers. You have to think about the whole package. So I don't have any worries about that. I'm completely confident about that.
I can't wait to find out if it can make an old man happy.
It absolutely can. It absolutely
So
can.
I think that's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
If this GSX-R 125 and the 1000 will be present in the 2026 lineup, can we, you're not going to tell me the answer to this, so I don't know why we're asking. Can we expect anything in the middle, with 600s, with sort of super sports bikes making a bit of a comeback? Are there any plans to do something along those lines?
I think we've got our GSX-R in the middle there, and I think that's our bike that kind of fills that for the time being, which is an award-winning bike, absolutely spectacular to ride. And actually, if we think about where the customers are and where the market is at the moment, I think is absolutely in the right place. And I don't see anything changing about that.
It's a really good point, actually, talking about the market, because I wanted to kind of go off on the tangent of how do you think the market has changed over your time in motorcycling? Has that average age, presumably it's gone from wherever you were 19 years ago to plus 19 years to today. But equally, I also want to ask you about what's happening with this new bike sales and where's the kind of customer demand going? Because we've seen the stats, don't we, from especially in I think it's not exclusive to the UK, it's European-wide, it's possibly even globally that new bike sales are having a bit of a decline. Have you any thoughts on why that might be? I think are the two associated? Is that average age going up?
I'm not sure, because fairly typically, as the average age of riders has gone up, your income's going up. Family leave home, your disposable income becomes more. You're actually able to buy more expensive bikes or have more money to spend on your hobby. That's a fairly typical, pretty much all hobbies kind of see that. So if that's your passion, then that's where you're going to spend your money. So I don't think that in itself is necessarily the issue. And we do have, we do see younger customers coming in. I think it's a challenge for the industry as a whole. The number of younger customers coming in is probably not what it would have been when I started in motorcycling. I think that is a challenge, and I think we all have to face that. I think right now in the UK, I think we've got worries over the economy. We've got wars around Europe. We've got, we had supply issues around COVID. There's all sorts of different things kind of going on that I think sort of play into people's minds. And when a product is, all products, good quality, fantastically reliable, and if you don't use it enough, then maybe you say, well, actually, I can have another year out of that before I change it. So the kind of change cycles can get a bit longer because of that. People say, well, actually, that's a perfectly good bike. I don't need it one every 2 years. I'll have a new one every 3 years, could be a kind of thing. So I think those are the challenges that all manufacturers face. And I think, the way that we have to try to do that is to try to make bikes that are relevant to people who want to buy bikes. And I think 8R, 8S are part of that answer. Is, when 8R was announced, there were people saying, what I would have liked is a new GSX-R 750. But actually, where the customers are is where 8R is. And so that's an important part. As an organisation, you have to be commercially successful in order to be successful. So it's an important part of the equation.
So I guess one of the problems, and this probably is true for all manufacturers, is the speed the market changes these days seems to be so much quicker that the fads come and go at a much sort of quicker rate. And it seems to me that one of the challenges for manufacturers is to be able to respond to that more quickly. You were talking earlier about that kind of traditional 4 or 5 year development period. It seems like that has to be truncated because people can change much more. Their tastes will change within that time.
Yeah, I think that is probably a challenge for all manufacturers.
Yeah.
So I accept that. I think the kind of ways that manufacturers can respond to that, special editions can be one way that can give you a shorter development time.
Oh, yeah.
Platform bikes in themselves, bikes that share engines, chassis, give you the opportunity to shorten the production time for new models coming to market. And, the 8TT here is a perfect example of that. And all of those things kind of make it a bit shorter. But nonetheless, producing a new motorcycle does take time. So you have to kind of accept the fact that you can't always be everything to all people. You've got to have confidence in what you've brought. Actually, we're Suzuki. These are the products we've developed. This is right for our customers. And then if somebody else is doing something different, well, that's fine. That's for them to do. We'll be along with our next product when we're ready and feel confident about that.
It actually occurs to me that sometimes the market kind of, if you don't do anything, the market catches back up to you. It sort of comes around again. And the things that you were maybe holding you back at a certain stage in the market suddenly become a bonus. So I was thinking, one thing I was thinking about when you were talking about the GSX-R not having the same power output as its predecessor.
Yeah.
Remember when the 8S was launched?
Yeah.
There was a kind of when you look at the spec sheet before the bike was ridden, it didn't make as much power as some of its rivals. And everyone's like, oh, that's not such a great thing. And then when everybody rode the bike, it was like, oh no, the power delivery
really nice
is spot on. It's just right. It makes it a better engine.
Yes.
So I'm kind of thinking, there is the market can change and you've got to respond to that by.
You do, but you also, you have the opportunity, that engine is an example where have confidence in what you've developed and you lead the market.
Yeah.
Actually, you show customers, they don't know they wanted that, but when you give it to them, they go, oh, that's really good. That engine's fantastic. And, it's award-winning, selling well, got really great customer reviews. And so you can kind of have some confidence in your own engineering and design to do those things. And I think that works really well.
But the other thing the point I was trying to get to, I think, was that you have got bikes in your lineup, like the GSX-R, like the Hayabusa, and like the DRZ, which are kind of based on existing Suzuki engines. And there was a time when we were kind of saying, are they ever going to actually make a new engine or just keep recycling these old ones? And then the 8S came along and you go, okay, there's a new engine there.
Yes.
But there is a thirst for new engine configurations and maybe not so much new technology, because there is an almost an anti-technology trend, I think, in motorcycling, in the UK at least. And it occurred to me that one of the things that must keep you awake at night is the fact that maybe the Chinese seem to be able to produce a huge range of engines. It's like we hear stories of inline triples, V6s, V4s, goodness knows what, which haven't made it to these shores yet. I'm not sure if they've actually built them. Is that something that keeps you awake at night, the ability to respond and against the rival of, say, the Chinese?
I think that particular case, not at all. I'm not kept awake by that. I think there's some excitement around the fact that they're trying some different things. And I think what's good for motorcyclists is good for us. If it's good for the industry, it's good for us. So I don't mind that bit of excitement. I don't mind the fact that maybe that will bring some competition. But if I really
think the British bike industry said that in the 70s.
Well, but I think that's different because I think they didn't respond at all. And they were kind of like, oh no, we're the British bike industry, it'll be fine. That's kind of not how Japanese manufacturers react. So I don't see that as a threat from that point of view. But when you talk about those different engine configurations, earlier on we were talking about the fact that Suzuki's are bulletproof, that you can rely on them. When it's made, it's done right, and that's important. Actually, that longevity of development and design and testing and engineering, that is a core part of our DNA. And churning out lots of different engine configurations quite quickly without the testing and development and things that goes behind that, that's a recipe for disaster, I think. And, so I'm quite confident about what we're doing from that point of view. And the other thing is that, we also have a really great dealer network behind us. or in front of us, depending on how you kind of look at that. The dealer network is an important part of what Suzuki offer to our customers. We offer that opportunity to buy a bike in a great environment, know that you're getting looked after properly, know that when you need it serviced, there'll be someone there to do it, know that the parts will be available, know that if there's a problem with it, there's somewhere to get it fixed. And I think that's one of the challenges that emerging brands have, is they can be cheap and they can be everywhere and they can have lots of different things, but they can't necessarily do the things that a well-established brand can do.
Right.
You've got the Suzuki reputation, and you've not too far ago you announced that 7-year extended warranty deal as well.
Exactly. So
Part of the package
that works great. And the great thing there, the thing about that warranty is, if you've got a Suzuki and you have it serviced, we'll extend the warranty by a year up until the bike's 7 years old. Now, you might have bought that bike second hand. We'll still offer that warranty. If you bring the bike and have it serviced, we'll give you another year's warranty. You might have bought that bike off a mate who never had it serviced. Bring it in, have it serviced, get it up to date, we'll extend the warranty. That says we stand behind our products. And, no other manufacturer's offering. There are other similar copycat things out there, but no other manufacturer's offering that. You don't even have to have bought it as a new bike. It doesn't even matter if there's a gap in the service history. We'll look after you.
It's very appealing.
I think so.
Because when you do the maths, if you sit there with a spreadsheet and you work out what that Suzuki cost will be over 7 years versus the other one.
And the fact is, most customers, one way or another, having their bike serviced or servicing it themselves. So it's not really even a cost. It's just a principle of bring it to the Suzuki dealer, get them to check it over, have it serviced, extra year's warranty. Why wouldn't you do that?
Speaking of the future, I remember again a few years ago there was a lot of talk about the sort of 2035, 2030, 2035, and the end of petrol.
Sure.
That conversation seems to have gone a bit quiet.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's fixed the uncertainty around what is actually going to happen with EV and which has a knock-on effect with the development of new engines. Why would you develop a new engine if in 10 years' time you're not going to be able to sell it? So where is Suzuki at the moment with what's going on? Is there EV development? Is it hydrogen development? Is it, I don't know, fuel from apples?
Well, I suppose first thing is, in the UK, there's no kind of fixed end date for the end of internal combustion engines.
So it has kind of like...
So it
is open-ended now.
Well, I don't think it's open-ended, but it's being discussed but not agreed. So we don't have a date. In Europe, it's kind of set as 2035 currently. Who knows? There's a lot of uncertainty, I guess, is what, I agree with you. There's a lot of uncertainty. But Suzuki's stance has always been that there will be no single solution to this. Actually, it's likely to be a multi-pathway kind of thing. So it could be battery electric vehicles might be ideal if you want a small scooter to commute to work on. That might be the ideal solution. But it might be that maybe it's hydrogen fuel or biofuel or e-fuel in other situations. And we're working on all of those kind of things and testing and development and looking at all those different options because, we've very much said we kind of need to keep all of our options open and it will probably be horses for courses. There will be certain things that are better for this and certain things that are better for that. And it's not just one solution. If you think about that, for me, I think the internal combustion engine's got plenty of life left in it. And that's, and I expect so. And that's the great thing there. The other thing, if you think about Suzuki on a global basis, is these regulations are different in lots of different countries around the world. Everyone's in a different place on that journey to kind of bring down emissions. And so actually it's not a one, this date happens in Europe and therefore all production must cease. Actually, these kind of things will be a rolling development. So there's plenty of time for all these models to kind of continue to be developed for us and our customers to enjoy them. I'm not worrying about that really. I think it's plenty of time to happen.
All right, then what does worry you?
I'm not a worrier by nature, Simon. So I suppose that's part of it. I think, of course, the market's tough. We talked about that kind of environment.
Yeah.
And that means that it's very competitive. It means that we need to really be looking out for our dealers and making sure that they're kind of being looked after and that our customers are being looked after. And that can be quite tough. I think about my team, the things that are going on for them. We talked about all the bike launches. It's the most exciting year from that point of view. It also makes it really busy. So the team are tired. They're excited but tired. They're elated but exhausted. Looking after people from that point of view, I think is really important. So thinking about how all that kind of comes together and how to make sure we get some fun in between all of those things. And
Serious fun.
Yeah, exactly that. And, a recent example is that we took our sales team and after sales team out to Slovenia to test ride the 8T and the TT, actually in the week before you guys as journalists came to ride the bikes. So that we had an opportunity to kind of ride around the mountains in Slovenia, enjoy the bikes, get to know them, ready for the fact that we're going to be selling them soon. But the core part of that was, let's take the team out and have some fun. And it's really nice to be able to do that. We're in an industry where fun's central to it. And always remembering that is one of the keys to making it work.
Can't see fairer than that, really, can you? Because I'm thinking we're all just trying to go, what's wrong with Suzuki? What's wrong with motorcycling? Maybe just shut up and get on and ride a bike, maybe? Yeah, okay.
Encourage everyone. I just want to, I've got a question about EV or alternative fuel.
Yeah.
There aren't too many manufacturers out there who can do motorbikes and motor cars.
Sure.
And of course, you are one of those. Can you join forces with your automotive departments, especially with the R&D guys who are looking, who perhaps, I don't know, maybe they're a little bit more further down the line with alternative fuel. Is that something where the company can?
I think they will be. I mean, certainly from an EV point of view, our car colleagues are launching their first EV about now, so that's kind of coming to market quite soon. Of course, the engineering resource that happens in Suzuki, that knowledge gets shared. So you'll look at what did we learn here when we did development of cars, or what did we learn when we did development on boats, or boat engines. All those things do get shared. They're not always directly translatable, of course, because the dynamics of motorcycles can be quite different to the dynamics of a car. But nonetheless, you do use that, and that is one of the strengths of Suzuki. Is that we're a big global business. We're in lots of different bits of the market, and there's stuff you can kind of really learn from that. When you're, more or less 50% of the car market in India, you're going to learn a lot of stuff about how to build affordable cars for the Indian market. And then what do you learn from that in terms of your engineering and your management of product planning and all those things? Of course, that can have a trickle-down effect right across the business.
I'm not so much worried about Suzuki cars. Do you still make a V6 boat engine?
Yes.
Yeah, stick that in a bike.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
That would be good.
It's quite big.
Yeah,
it's quite a big engine.
Make it a cruiser.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the bigger hurdles, we talked about average age of motorcyclists, but some of those hurdles are perhaps improving rider standards, as in the quality of the riding, but also encouraging young. I mean, it's almost like the golden ticket, isn't it? Everybody wants more younger riders, or just simply more riders. It's not about age, I suppose, because you can be a young rider, a new rider at 57. So you can be a new rider at 17. Are you guys focused on anything like that? Do you have? Are there I don't know, corporate goals about improving standards or getting younger riders in?
I think when we talk about the kind of the safety standards, that's usually built into our kind of engineering. And when we look at the different bikes that come, gradually, bit by bit, new bits of technology come in that, will make riding safer, but importantly for us, don't interfere with the pleasure of riding a bike. And that's kind of, quite important. And so, I suppose if we look backwards, ABS is one of the first ones that people often talk to about and how will that interfere with the riding pleasure. But actually over time, everybody accepts that ABS is there and that in 9 times out of 10, it's not interfering with your riding experience at all. It's just there as a backstop in case you need it. So I think that sort of safety stuff really comes from that. Of course, we'd always encourage riders to think about doing additional training, to think about going off and doing advanced riding, that kind of stuff. I think that's great. And we as Suzuki, for all of our team that ride, we kind of do an annual assessment and actually go out and have a bit of training for a day and just make sure that actually we're on the ball with our own riding standards. So from a personal point of view, kind of looking after our team and kind of supporting that. So I think that kind of shows from that point of view. But the second part to your question, I can't remember what it was. So
encouraging younger riders or newer riders.
I think that part really is, as much as anything else, about trying to bring bikes that will appeal to them. And that whether that is the price point or the design or the appeal. And I really think that this kind of platform with this sort of 800cc engine is a part of that. Is that, actually it has got a very broad appeal, but it makes it accessible. And if we go back to that comparison about GSX-R 750 versus 8R, for instance, is that the majority of young riders would struggle to buy a GSX-R 750, probably because the insurance would be expensive. It would be difficult for them to get on that bike. And, I certainly, my own journey when I was, buying bikes as a young man was that I always wanted a bigger bike, but the thing that slowed your journey was the insurance. Is you needed the experience to kind of get your insurance costs down. All of those things played a part in you gaining experience before you got your hands on a big bike. And in a different way, that's still the case today. the fact is you have to have bikes that customers can get to. And so, yeah, bikes that are at a more affordable price in a part of the market that's appropriate for riders with less experience, as well as fun for those with experience, I think is a good part of that.
That speaking about technology, I've recently been riding around on a BMW with an automatic gearbox and a Yamaha with an automatic gearbox. We know Hondas have got automatic gearboxes. Suzuki are kind of notable in not having anything in that department yet. Is there anything going on there? Where do you see automatic gearboxes on bikes in general? And are we going to see anything from Suzuki that...
I think I can't really talk about what might come from Suzuki in the future, but I suppose from a personal point of view, talking to dealers, some things I'll talk to will say, actually, customers quite like that. And it tends to be that it's quite approachable if you're new to motorcycling, because it kind of simplifies things. So I think that makes it a little bit easier. But equally, the other side of that is that most people who are into motorcycling are into it because of that challenge and involvement and engagement. That actually, getting that gear change just right as you go into a corner or come out of a corner is part of the pleasure of riding a bike.
Seems to me.
And certainly for me personally, that's part of the pleasure, is that experience. It's not just, I left from A and I got to B. It's how you did that. And did I ride well? Did I get that corner right? Or did I actually make a mess of that? Did I get that gear change in the right place? Those little things are all part of the experience of riding a motorcycle. So I think the manual gearbox has got plenty of life left in it yet.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. No, I am seriously, because there are other manufacturers I've talked to who've been fairly dismissive about, manual gearboxes, and you can actually see in some of the product lineups where they're not even offering the top model in a range with a manual gearbox, and you kind of think, oh, but if I want that feature, but I don't want the auto gearbox, I can't have it. So I think it's really important. I'm glad that if you're feeding information back to Hamamatsu, that one of it is keep the clutch. Clutches are good.
Yeah, we like it.
Yeah.
Paul, just as we come towards a natural close, I've got a few quick fire questions for you, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Just mainly, really, it's about sales figures. What are the most popular models in the UK now?
In the UK, GSX-S1000, S1000 GT, 8R. They're our top three sellers. But actually, across the Suzuki range, we sell a lot of bikes at similar volumes. So they're just our top three.
I thought you were going to tell me that it would be 125 scooters.
We do sell well on 125cc scooters, but this year it's been those big bikes.
And what's your personal favourite? Because presumably you've got access to any bike in the press fleet right now.
I think the bike that's got a place in my heart is Hayabusa.
Yeah.
I think I've always really enjoyed riding that. I've had some great rides on it. I love the flexibility of it. I kind of love the bigness of it. The fact it's a physically big bike. I like the fact that you can ride it at 30 miles an hour in sixth gear really nicely. It's very rewarding to ride. Get that right and it just feels great. It makes you grin from ear to ear. I just absolutely love that.
What's the future of Hayabusa? Gen 3 it's 3-4 years old now, isn't it?
Yeah.
You were 5.
Yeah, I obviously can't talk about specifically what's going to happen. I'm absolutely confident there is a future for Hayabusa. I'll look forward perhaps in the future to be able to come here one day and talk about that in itself. So I feel very confident about that. I had a story, Simon. Have you got time for a quick story? You were talking about that trip when we went to Hamamatsu back in 2007. So Simon came with us. We were launching a new GSX-R 1000 at the time. And we took Simon on a factory tour. And there was a lot of secrecy, as you can imagine. This was pre-launch. It wasn't announced. Lots of disclaimers signed, all that kind of stuff. We're walking around the factory looking at GSX-R 1000. And as we do that, a brand new, unannounced, top secret Hayabusa rides past, which was the Gen 2, which I obviously knew about but never seen. Simon had no idea about it. And it just rode past us. And you were like, all goggle eyes. And then all the engineers and the top management from Suzuki were like going, oh no. And there was a big kind of panic. And disclaimers were signed in arrears to kind of hide that. And so there was always that bit of fun around the fact that, oh my God.
It was a bit where the photographer was walking around with it and he said, I don't think I'm supposed to photograph this. Like, you're probably not supposed to get pictures of that.
And I was on my first work trip to Japan with Suzuki and my first job at Suzuki, thinking, oh no, the whole thing's gone
everything was
wrong.
clenched.
It was,
The thing is, though, Suzuki have been so careful about everything that when it actually happened, I said afterwards, I was thinking, I think that was actually deliberate. I think they did that just to...
It really wasn't deliberate,
Was that a test of some sort?
It really wasn't. Well, it was a test for me, that's for sure. So anyway, so that was great. So yeah, Hayabusa for sure. And yeah, hopefully we'll have some news in the future, but nothing I can tell you about.
But it's still a halo model, and everyone loves it.
Absolutely,
It's a focal point.
yeah, like GSX-R as a halo for Suzuki.
What's in your garage right now?
I have got a DR Big 750 from sort of late 80s, which I bought as a project, kind of a bit of a wreck of a bike. I bought it from somebody else who worked sort of in the Suzuki family, and did that up over a few years. Kind of stripped it down in the garage, had a little bit of help along the way.
I was going to say, well, you would have, because Suzuki Vintage Parts Program.
We were. I was able to get loads of the parts I needed for it, brand new, which was great.
Which is, it's been hugely successful.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
It's absolutely bizarre that nobody else has done. No other manufacturer has really dived into it the way you did and owned it.
Yeah, and that definitely really helped me. It certainly helped me at the time to kind of do that. And also, of course, working in the industry, people say, I need some help with this. So that was really nice to kind of do that. And I've got a GT 550 triple two-stroke, which I bought as a project, and I got it running. And now it's parked back up in the garage again. So that
middle cylinder.
It's a bit difficult. So it's probably my technical ability rather than anything actually wrong with the bike, and really finding time for that. So that's, let's say, a project for the future. So they're my personal bikes.
Because it's like a vintage parts program. Does it go back that far?
I was able to buy some parts from it. I was able to buy a brand new fuel tap for it, and a few other bits and pieces are just available from stock. Amazingly. So so that's great.
And finally, if there is anyone watching or listening who fancies being the next Paul de Lusignan, and what tips would you give them?
I think being quite, having a broad range of skills is quite important. So I guess what's got me to this point is, I started in engineering, I've done marketing, I've done PR, I've done sales. And so as a result of that, you kind of get a broad knowledge of the industry and also a kind of broad set of skills. So I think there's that, obviously hard work, and a bit of luck. Kind of being in the right place at the right time is part of life, isn't it? Is kind of doing that, but you make your own luck to an extent.
Sorry, does that range of skills include dancing?
Yeah,
because you're a bit of a dancer.
I'm not sure I can dance. Yeah, I can dance. I can sing. I can.
Oh yeah, I've heard you karaoke as well.
Exactly, I like a bit of karaoke.
What's your go-to song?
No, I'm not sure I'm prepared to say that.
I'm not going to make you perform it.
It's Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Oh yeah,
he nails it.
Wonderful. Paul, thank you for your time. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for the stories and the input. Simon, thanks for your efforts as well. And
enjoyed that. Pleasure.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And if you're not yet a Bike Social member, please go and be one. It's actually, membership's free if you've got your insurance directly with Bennett already. There's over 200 fantastic deals and opportunities and competitions and such like. Go to Bike Social membership. Otherwise, Bike Club, Bike Social Bike Club is another place. It's sort of a community. It's like our own social media site. Go and have a look at that. We've got a Facebook page, a private Facebook page, a group called Bike Social, obviously. Otherwise, all the other Talking Heads episodes are on a playlist. They're available through Spotify and Apple, all the rest of it. What else can I say? Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.